So what do fluent writers do? Where do we want to take our students? Let's compare fluent writers with struggling writers. Fluent writers possess background knowledge, okay? And I just want to stop there for 1 second. They know things. They know topics, they know events, they know history. These are students who are well informed, okay? And as a result are able to activate their background knowledge around a topic. You cannot ask a student to write about a topic that they don't know anything about. Okay, that makes no sense. As a result, you need to sufficiently develop your students' understanding of that topic if it's a topic that they've never studied before, right? And that, what is that? That is oral language and vocabulary, okay? And as well, of course, as reading. Fluent writers apply their purpose. That means they apply their knowledge of the writing genre, whether it be narrative, expository, argumentative. They understand what that means, and they make a plan for organizing their thoughts, usually through outlining. Fluent writers organize and connect thoughts in and across paragraphs. Okay, they understand the flow of a paragraph. They understand that it starts with the topic sentence, then we need to give a few details, and then we need to wrap up the paragraph. We need to conclude it. Just as they understand what goes into an introductory versus a body paragraph. Okay, so they not only have a sense of the sentence, but they have a sense of the cohesion between the sentences, okay, and between the paragraphs in an essay. They apply appropriate vocabulary and fluent syntax in and across sentences. And this is a result of not only being a fluent writer, but being a fluent speaker. If you don't have a lot of oral language, vocabulary and syntax is going to be really hard for you. And this is why, again, if we don't develop oral language, we're never giving our students a chance to express themselves and critically think aloud, because that is when they do develop their appropriate vocabulary and syntax. Okay, so we cannot ask students to write grammatically if we haven't even given them a chance to say anything. Finally, fluent writers hear the language as they're writing it. Have you ever written something and then gone back and read it out loud to yourself just to make sure it sounds right? That is what we're doing in our head as we're writing. We're actually hearing the language as we write it, and that is how we check for comprehension and whether it makes sense. Fluent writers revise, edit, and proof their product. Okay, a fluent writer understands that if they're writing a paragraph or an essay, this is not going to just take 5 minutes. This involves doing different things at different points. And they understand it, they understand the flow, and they're able to get from point A to point B. And finally, fluent writers expand and revise their schema around a topic through the writing process. What do I mean by that? Remember how when we were talking about close reading, I said when comprehension and analysis occurs, we are actually changing the reader's schema and understanding of this topic as a result of reading. Same thing with writing. There's an interaction between the writer and the text. Let's say I give my students an assignment to write about global warming, and they may have known something about global warming before that. Their knowledge of global warming is greater and more sophisticated as a result of having written about it. Okay, let's take a look at struggling writers. Whereas fluent writers possess a great deal of knowledge and can activate it around a topic, struggling writers may not have sufficient background knowledge, or they may not connect to what they already know. For example, let's say you have a student who has experienced an earthquake or a drought or extreme temperatures or a flood or any number of those things. That student may have experienced that, but they may not be able to connect it to the topic of global warming. I'm just using global warming now as an example. So they've experienced it, but they haven't been able to make that connection to, aha, I actually know something about this. I've actually experienced something like this in my life. How do we get them to connect to what they already know? Oral language. We show them pictures. We ask them questions. We have them ask questions. We have them discuss in groups. We prompt them to dig in to their background knowledge and develop it around a new topic. Struggling writers don't understand the purpose of the writing task, okay? And this is my big gripe with the Common Core. We are asking kids at a younger and younger age to do these very sophisticated writing tasks that before primarily were left to high school students, okay? Because elementary school, we were working on foundational skills. In middle school, we were doing a lot of, initial writing of paragraphs and essays. And it was really at the high school level that students were doing these very complex tasks. Now they're doing it younger and younger, and the kids don't understand what they're doing. We're saying, okay, well, you're going to write an expository essay. You're going to write an argumentative essay. They don't understand what that is. They don't have enough practice around it. And they don't possess enough knowledge and skill around the genres to be able to fluently do this. They often don't get enough practice with outlining, or they don't have a consistent method of outlining. And that's one of the things I want you to establish with your students. I'm going to talk about outlining later on. Struggling writers get stuck on the sentence level, and they can't move on to thinking about the bigger picture. As a result, they lose focus. Okay, and this is again a lack of oral language development. We're asking them to write a 4 or 5 paragraph essay, or even a paragraph. They start with one sentence and they never move beyond that, okay, because they haven't sufficiently developed their knowledge and vocabulary around the topic. Struggling writers take a long time to retrieve language and tire out. And by the way, this is by no means limited to English learners. This can be any student. It can be a student with a disability. It can be a monolingual English speaker who simply hasn't had enough oral development around this topic. And as a result, the writer tires out, okay? And once the kid is tired, forget it. You're not going to get them to write the rest of it and learn something. Struggling writers don't understand the multiple steps involved. They don't go back to check their work. Part of that is being overwhelmed and tired, okay? And part of it is even with explicit instruction, even with time to practice doing it, they don't get enough practice to be able to do it independently. And this is one of the things I see so often in classrooms, is that because they don't understand the purpose of the writing, because they don't have enough knowledge around the topic or vocabulary, because they're tired, because of all of these things, when it comes time to doing the final steps, they're tired, they're overwhelmed, and they don't have enough energy to apply this skill independently. And the biggest one of all, the thing that I care the most about, they lose confidence in themselves and don't see themselves as writers. They lose motivation and engagement. And I see this happening as young as kindergarten. Okay, and this is what makes me so sad, is that if we only allowed kids enough time to develop as writers, but we're putting this enormous pressure on them, okay, and they're in the 2nd, 3rd grade, and they're being asked to do too much. They lose confidence, and they stop caring about writing. They're not motivated, and By middle school, you have disengaged students. And so how do we get them to get excited about writing and to see themselves as a writer with something to say? Well, we have to engage them in the topic. We have to start at the sentence level, and we have to ask them to write sentences about what they think, about what they feel, about what they know. It can be around pictures, it can be around videos, it can be around anything you want, but they have to care about what you're teaching them.